So welcome to this eighth and final conversation between you and me and friends. This is our final Village Connect conversation on Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, his Beatitudes. Remember, the Greek word is makarios, to be blessed. And from that, we get the Latin beatus. And from that, we get the English word beatitude, the blessings. There are actually 9 of them total. The last 2, 8 and 9, are sort of combined together, and you'll talk about that in just a few moments. For us to get through this, we have 2 more to do today, our 7th and our 8th. So in Matthew 5, verse 9, again, I think Jesus looks out over this crowd on this mountain, and he sees people, and these blessings come from this context of what he sees. Jesus looks out, probably sees maybe some folks who are kind of ornery, not getting along, and they're arguing perhaps, maybe even fighting in this crowd, maybe even jostling, trying to get nearer to him. And then he sees people who are trying to separate these people or calm them down. And he thinks, and he says out loud, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. There is no doubt a special place in God's own heart for those who bring peace to the world. Peace is not just an absence of conflict. Peace really is the establishment of shalom. The Hebrew concept of shalom is not just the absence of conflict. It really is about wholeness. It's the justice and righteousness. It's life flourishing. It's wholeness. It's completeness. Those are the peacemakers who bring peace and wholeness and shalom to those around them and indeed to the whole creation. Think about that too. What does it mean to bring peace, wholeness, shalom to the creation around us as well? Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." Reverend Gene Peterson, who wrote a paraphrase of the Bible, his language is, "You are blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete and fight." You are blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete and fight. Too often in this world, we think it's all a competition. We've got to get ours. And that's not what Jesus says. Jesus says, "Blessed are those who bring wholeness and completeness, peace to everyone." I like Gene Peterson's paraphrase, "and not have people compete and fight." Then Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." Gene Peterson puts it this way. He says, "That is when you discover who you really are and your place in God's family." When you teach people how to cooperate, that's when you discover who you really are and that you have a place in God's family. One of our church fathers, St. Jerome, says that we are not born children of God. God chooses to make us God's children. We're not born children of God. That's not automatic. God chooses to claim us as God's children. So that means you and I have this identity. And we make peace, the things that make for peace. Then God claims us as God's children. It's effectual, right? It's relational. It's consequential. Those who make peace, God claims those as God's children. So we'll have you talk about what it means to be peacemakers, to bring wholeness and shalom, not just to yourselves, but to your relationships, to your family, and to the creation as a whole. And what it means to be called God's own children, to be welcomed into God's own family. So that's one of the 2 blessings we're considering in this last conversation together. I've got one more. Hey friends, so one more blessing for us to have conversations about. This is the 8th. So there are 9 total blessings. The 8th and 9th are very similar. You'll talk about that just in a few moments. But one more blessing, the 8th one I want to raise up for you and for me. Jesus looks out at the crowd and says, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I'm convinced that this is one of the statements that Jesus makes in Matthew's gospel that's there for the readers of Matthew's gospel in that moment. So Matthew's gospel, we think, was written certainly after the Gospel of Mark, because so much of the Gospel of Mark is included in the Matthew gospel. So it's on the other end of 70 in the Common Era, post-70. In the year 64, Rome catches fire and much of the city is destroyed by fire. Roman Emperor Nero blames the Christians and the Jews, and that's when the persecutions of Christians actually starts to begin in earnest in the year 64. If Matthew's written post the year 70, and Christians are starting to read this together, they're experiencing the persecutions. I think this is a clairvoyant moment. It's why Jesus says, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." I think there are people who are reading this post-70 and they're experiencing persecutions and they find this blessing from Jesus, and it must have been a salve to their soul and a source of hope and a source of comfort. That those who are being persecuted for righteousness, the kingdom of heaven will be theirs. Hey, so I'm grateful for this nation in which we live together as Americans. I'm proud and grateful that we don't suffer the persecutions of what it means to be Christian. Years ago when I was teaching at Columbia Seminary, one of my classes, there was an international student, a wonderful, amazing woman who was studying her theological degree. She came to us from Nigeria, the Christian church there. Her name is Comfort, and she was a comfort, just a beautiful young woman, deep, wonderful sub-Saharan skin. That black is almost so blue. I love the skin. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous skin. And she was a wonderful student and always upbeat. So when I saw her walking across campus looking downtrodden, I went up to her and said, "Comfort, what's wrong?" And she started weeping. So I wrapped my arms around her. And she told me this horrible, horrible story that she just found out that two of the boys that were in her Sunday school class last year in her village in Nigeria, they were walking to church and they were holding their Bibles under their arms, a clear signal that they're Christian. And some Muslim boys, certainly misguided, set upon these boys, these two young boys from her Sunday school class that she taught last year, and they beat them and they killed them. And then Comfort said that isn't even the worst of it. She says the worst of it is that when members of her church heard about that, some of the men went out and they found Muslim boys and they beat them and killed them. And they're standing on the campus of Columbia Seminary in Decatur, Georgia. I understood about this challenge of being persecuted and the sadness of then retaliating, of the revenge that Jesus calls us not to do. I'm glad that we don't face those persecutions. There's no doubt in my mind the readers of Matthew would have heard this and they're facing persecution. So for Jesus to say, "Blessed are you who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven," it would have been an important word for them, a crucial word, a life-saving word for them. Oh, you'll talk about persecutions and what that means in this day and age. There are Christians around the world who witness to Jesus Christ at risk of their lives. And it says, Jesus says, "For theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Hey, that may sound familiar. Do you remember this? The first blessing, the first beatitude. "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." The result is the same. The poor in spirit, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Remember that we talked about the poor in spirit. those who totally and completely understand that they are in submission to God, that their poor in spirit really is giving their whole selves to God. I think that's the parallel to those who are persecuted, that they also are giving themselves to God, and by the grace of God, through the power of Jesus Christ and the presence of the Holy Spirit, the kingdom, the reign of God will belong to them. What do good sovereigns do? They care for their people, and they protect them, and they keep them safe. They keep them whole. I think Jesus is saying, even those who are persecuted, you will be kept safe. You will be made whole. God knows of your persecution. God knows of the pain and suffering. God is with you in this. Martin Luther, a church father of ours, right? Father of Lutheranism. He has this Latin phrase. Martin Luther said, Christianus quasi Christianus. Christianus quasi Christianus. This idea is to be Christian is to be crucified. Christianus quasi Christianus. To be Christian is to be crucified. It's to suffer. We'll talk some about what that means in our day and age, if that's true for us as American Christians, given the freedoms that we enjoy. It's important to end this conversation this way, that we belong to God always, and that's God's doing. And no matter what we experience in our lives, the joys of our lives as well as the sadnesses, even persecution for some of us, we will always belong to God, because the kingdom of heaven belongs to us by God's grace. So I'm really grateful to you for this journey we've shared together during these times. Friends, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you, and may the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you peace. Blessings on this day and for all of your days. Thank you so much. Take care.